Today you'll learn the 6 tent setup mistakes that quietly destroy a good tent in a single trip. We're talking snapped poles, ripped floors, and a soaked sleeping bag at 2 a.m. And the small, easy fixes that stop every single one before it happens. Here's the thing most people never ask. What actually kills a tent isn't a storm. It's how you set it up in the first 10 minutes. Get those minutes wrong, and the tent is doomed before the sun even goes down. Mistake number 1 is picking the wrong spot. You see a flat, grassy patch and think it's perfect, but that low flat ground is exactly where rain collects like a bathtub. Rain runs downhill and pools right under you, and by midnight, your tent floor is a shallow lake. The fix is simple. Camp on slightly higher ground and clear away any sharp rocks or sticks that can poke holes in the floor. Mistake number 2 is skipping the ground sheet. That thin tent floor looks tough, but drag it across dirt and gravel for a few nights and it wears through like sandpaper on paper. Lay down a cheap ground sheet or tarp first, and it takes the beating instead of your tent. Just make sure it's a little smaller than the tent floor, so rain can't sneak under and collect on top of it. Mistake number 3 snaps more tents than any storm ever will, forcing the poles. When a pole feels stuck, your instinct is to shove harder, and that's exactly the move that cracks it. Those poles are held together by a thin stretchy cord inside them. Push too fast and the sections don't line up, so the sharp ends grind and split the pole instead of clicking together. Instead, feed each pole section together slowly, one joint at a time, and let the cord pull them into line. Never whip a folded pole out to snap it straight. That's the number 1 way people crack a brand new pole. Mistake number 4 is pitching the tent drum tight. It feels smart to yank every guy line as tight as possible, but a tent stretched bar tight has nowhere to give when the wind hits. One strong gust yanks against that rigid fabric and rips the seams, or tears out a stake with a chunk of tent still attached. Leave a little slack so the tent can flex and bounce with the wind instead of fighting it. Mistake number 5 is sneaky, and it soaks you from the inside. It's letting the Rainfly, the outer waterproof cover, touch the inner tent wall. Wherever the wet outer cover touches the inner wall, water soaks straight through by contact and your gear gets wet, even though nothing is leaking. Pull the Rainfly out with the guy lines so there's an air gap between the 2 layers. Mistake number 6 is the slow killer, leaving your tent baking in full sun for days. Sunlight quietly eats the fabric, and after enough hot afternoons, the tent tears like wet tissue with barely any force. Whenever you can, pitch your tent in shade during the day, or take it down if you're leaving camp for hours. A tent that lives in the shade can last for years, instead of falling apart in one hot summer trip. There's one more killer that happens after the trip is over: packing a wet tent away. Roll up a damp tent and stuff it in the bag, and by next weekend, it's covered in dark mold that rots the fabric and reeks. So even if you leave in the rain, always fully dry your tent at home before you store it. Hang it over a railing or a chair for a day, and mold never gets a chance to grow. One last quick fix that saves stakes and guy lines: push your stakes into the ground at a slight angle, tilt it away from the tent. Straight up stakes pull out with the first hard tug, but an angled stake grips and holds. Put it all together and your tent does its real job, keeping you warm and dry no matter what the night throws at it. High ground, a ground sheet, gentle poles, a little slack, an air gap, and shade. While the rain hammers down outside, you're tucked inside warm and completely dry, and your tent will still be standing strong on your next trip and the trip after that. So remember the 6 killers: bad ground, no ground sheet, forced poles, a drum-tight pitch, a touching Rainfly, and baking sun. Plus dry it before you store it. Fix these, and one tent can outlast 100 trips. Because a tent doesn't die in a storm, it dies from 10 lazy minutes in a wet stuff sack. Treat it right, and it'll keep the rain off your head for years. If you found this helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.